All right, we are live. How bad is the classic and enthusiast car market out there? Is it really that bad? If you watch Ray and Zach over at Car Edge, they're telling you we're in a crisis. We've got Brandon over at Car Questions Answered. He's just got that glum face all the time. But we're here to answer that question, or at least get into it. I don't know if anybody can really answer that question, but we've got receipts. We are going to analyze, and we're going to go over the results of the auctions that we made predictions on our last episode, and we're going to make new predictions on new listings, and we're going to analyze those listings as well. We're going to try to get to the bottom of just how bad the market really is. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Nerd! Bid Nerds is your YouTube car game show. That's right. We are here. It is live. That was a fast opening, wasn't it? Welcome, guys. My name is John Polnik. I'm your host, along with my partner, Michael Deeb in San Francisco. Gerd is our guest host tonight. He's our third nerd and reigning Yahtzee champion. That means that he tends to get it right more often than any of us when it comes to predictions. And that's what this show is. We predict the prices and results of auction listings on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, PCAR Market, and more. And we also are always trying to answer kind of, the questions we're asked a lot very often. What's going on in the market? And tonight everyone's asking, is it as bad as everyone says it is on YouTube? And to get to that, first I'm going to say hello to my partner, Michael Deeb. What's up over there? You wanted to shout out.
Yeah, what's up, JP? So thank you, Gerd, for showing up and hosting with us tonight. Thank you also for not wearing your crown and just like shining us on, the reigning champion. A quick shout out to Chris Carbine and the crew down in New Orleans. Carbine is on a rooftop in sunny and warm and muggy Louisiana having a cookout with Ann, and they're having a watch party. So the Bid Nerds wants to give some love to the New Orleans crew. Chris Carbine, thank you for hosting. Thank you for promoting. We love you guys. We're jealous we're not there having gumbo with you.
That's right. All right, let's get to the show. Again, welcome to everyone in the Nerd Herd. We love you guys. If you're watching this show live, we do this because you guys are so awesome, and it's a lot of fun having you guys with us. If you're new to the show, if you just clicked on this and you're like, what is the Bid Nerds? We dig into the listings, and we're going to answer this question. How bad is it? Let's get to the first car we talked about in the last episode and see if we can answer that question. What was the first car on the list, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, we're going to circle back to the Porsche 904 replica by Avanti that was an alumni listing on Bring a Trailer just a couple of days ago. This car was listed out of Whitestone, Virginia, and had previously been listed on BAT before, back in November of 2020. Back in 2020, JP, you'll remember this car had a 2.5-liter Subaru turbo engine, and it failed to sell at that time for $51,000 in November of 2020. The car has come back to market here in July of 2024 and has now been fitted with a 3-liter flat 6. So we wondered how much better this car would do. Again, failed to sell at $51,904. I gave a bid this time with the Porsche engine of $75,000. I wasn't sure if it would sell for that. JP, you took the over by 10 grand at $85,000. And Sahan, the Persian Pillow, joined us remotely from his new home somewhere in the East Bay. And he gave us a bid under me at $68,000. So Gerd, it's not a Beck, but the Avanti looks the business. There's some funny things in the interior, but the big thing is the update to the Porsche flat 6 and a 3-liter to boot. So this car is going to go. What do you think this car would have hammered for on Bring a Trailer?
Well, I would not really know anything about it, but based on what you guys are talking about, I'll go in between you at 79.5.
79.5, very conservative and not like Gerd at all. JP, our car hammered for $94,908, where it sold on 49 bids. So it's difficult to assess what's going on with the market by this car here. This is really, really super niche. But what we're seeing is the update to the Porsche motor, and this car basically got twice as much money as it did in 2020. JP, it is a different time, but it is kind of a contentious soft market like it was throughout most of 2020 with all the sky following, shelter in place. How do you read the tea leaves on this one? Clearly, the Porsche engine made a big, big difference. But in a sunnier economic climate, would this car have brought well over 6 figures? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually really happy to see this result. This car was just sitting at a very low number, and a lot of the nerd herd on the last episode was really kind of let's call it bearish on this car. I think a lot of people see something like a 904 replica and think of it the same way as they think of a 356 replica or even a 550 replica. A lot of those are built on Volkswagen platforms, maybe not so much the 550s, but certainly the 356s. And those cars have a hard time getting much more than, they're usually in the high 30s, mid 40s. The 550s maybe a little bit more than that. We don't see a lot of 904s come up for auction. The fact that this one was up for auction a while back with just the Subaru engine in it, that makes it a different animal. This car now having the 3-liter flat six Porsche engine really makes this something special and sought after. This is a six-figure car, really. The market is definitely in a correction mode, but I wouldn't call this a collapse. If we compare it to what it was 2 years ago, you could absolutely say, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, as if 2 years ago was the norm. The thing that we have to really look at is that 2 years ago, things were not normal at all. That was crazy back then. That was an artificial bubble. Prices were way too high. Prices are starting to come back down into reasonable levels, and good, cool, really sought after, or at least cars that really provide the value that you think you're going to get. You look at something like this, it looks romantic, it's going to have the performance, it's lightweight, a lot of power. People want this and will pay for it. The 356 replicas, everyone is different, and sometimes they really don't live up to what the romantic notion of them, what you would think they would. Gerd, what do you think of the result of this car?
That's a nice car, man. I'd love to drive that thing, especially with that flat six in it. That's got to scoot along pretty good.
Yeah. Have you ever sat in our friend Tony's car?
No, I never have.
Yeah, I mean, just getting in and out of the one thing is, I'm kind of a short, stocky guy. I'm a little thick. Okay, I'm a lot thick. But I can get in and out of one of these pretty easily. You two guys are a lot taller than me. Life is difficult trying to, I don't think either one of you guys would really enjoy this car. You'd probably enjoy it once you're in it and driving it, but getting in and out of it, I saw Dwayne Wick, our friend from Wick's Garage, get into Tony's car once, and I didn't know if he was going to be able to get out of the thing. All right, what do you guys think of the results of this 904 replica? Does that result what was the final price, Deeb?
$94,000.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. A couple of years ago, this thing probably would have brought 150 grand, but I think this makes more sense somewhere in that $100,000 range. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that this result is a canary in the coal mine? Is this telling us that things are really in trouble? Do you think that this value is going to continue to go down? That's really another question for us, guys. Where's the value of something like a 904 going to be a year from now? Let us know what you think in the comments below, because you guys are the experts. All right, and let's get to the next car. What do we got?
All right, JP, we're going to check back in on this one-owner 2010 Aston Martin Rapide in this very unusual, hardly green finished metallic example. Our car is on Bring a Trailer out of Monterey, sold by our buddies, or offered for sale by our buddies at More Imports. The car has 36,000 miles, a naturally aspirated 6-liter V12, but the colorway is certainly polarizing, JP, to say the least. And this model is just not something I would consider a mass adopted commercial success. So what did we think this car was going to do? John, I gave you a bid of $52,000, which is the average selling price for this year Aston Martin Rapide. You took the under at $45,000, and Sahand, our buddy the Persian Pillow, who joined us as third nerd on the last show, took the under at split the difference between us, JP, at $48,000. So, Gerd, it's a nice condition but unusual colorway, super niche luxury sedan. What do you think this would have done with decent marketing on Bring a Trailer?
Hey, where was it when you guys were looking at it?
Oh, boy, Gerd, that's a good question. I don't remember. We don't keep that track anymore. I used to keep that number.
I would say that looks kind of like the ice green on the Porsche, doesn't it? Color.
It really does.
Yeah.
I think we said that on the last episode too, for sure.
I'm going to go with like 56.
56. So Gerd took the over. JP, would you believe that our car hammered for $45,007, $7, where it sold And it gets even more interesting from here on just 11 bids.
Wow.
JP, this car got no love, no action, 45,000. Look, when I gave you 52, that's the industry average for these cars selling in the United States over the last couple of years. When our car trips for 45, that is a 10% reduction in the market price. And look, this car should have been, it had the right miles and an unusual colorway. So I would say, you ask, is it that bad? I mean, this is a 12, 15% subtraction from the market average. I'd say this car is telling us that the market is softer still. This car helps answer that question, JP. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it answers the question specifically for this sector of, call it classic and enthusiast cars, because this car barely sits in, call it enthusiast car land, right? I mean, it is an Aston Martin, which you think of sports cars when you think of an Aston Martin, but this is a luxury sedan. It's definitely not classic. It's barely in there, right? Not classic, but luxury sedans are always soft. I mean, everybody knows that if you go out and buy a brand new BMW 7 Series or 8 Series or whatever. I've lost track of what series is what anymore over there. But when you go out and get a big old saloon, even a Porsche Panamera or whatever, they depreciate more than just about anything, any big Audi or Jaguar when you drive them off the lot. So Aston Martin, with its questionable reliability, especially even when they're young. I mean, do you really want a 10, 15-year-old Aston Martin, even if it has low miles? You know it's going to hurt when it comes to you servicing and repairing this car. I think 45 grand says, hey, you know what? Things aren't as bad as people say they are, because to me, I like, honestly, I don't think I would have bid as high as if this car were at zero, if we were looking at this car when we looked at it, if it had just listed, it was still had 7 days to go, I'd have been like, I don't know, 25 grand or something, because I personally wouldn't pay more than 20 grand for this thing. I think this thing's a boat anchor. Gerd, what do you think of the result?
Yeah, but there's been somebody that's been waiting for one of these to go that inexpensive. And I mean, in the car business, we see this all the time as far as the luxury sedans, like you were saying, JP.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I mean, there are a lot of people in the wings that absolutely loved this car when it was brand new and it was $200-something thousand, and they knew, forget it, I'm just going to wait a couple of years. Well, you're waiting a while, but this is still kind of like a brand new car, right?
Well, it's 2010, so it's in brand new car condition, but this car, it's hard to imagine, JP. This car is basically 15 model years old.
Yeah.
And it went from what it was like $202,000 was MSRP. With options, it was easily 220 to 230. And now this car is barely worth 22% on the dollar with 36,000 miles, and it looks to be in excellent condition mechanically and cosmetically, as far as we can tell from two-dimensional images. That's just brutal, John. And then good luck, trying to find parts and getting service for less than $300 an hour. I mean, I think the smart people stay away from cars like this. They could truly be problematic.
Well, I mean, and then there are certain types of people that like want to be a baller on a budget. Is this something that a stripper would get into at one of those car lots where they can put something down to get in on buy here, pay here number? Maybe not quite there, but really,
her pimp
if
would buy it.
Her pimp would buy it for her, or the pimp would be driving around. Yeah. This is a ton of car for not a lot of money. And let's say you have a handful of other cars, because let's face it, the reality is the person that owns this car is not a stripper. The reality of the person that buys this car is someone that has 2, 3, 5, 10 other cars or whatever, and they're going to be driving this occasionally. This is going to be a special occasion car, something to go to a wedding in, or go out on a big night, or go to dinner with your wife or something like that. And then on the days that you want to go out and do some sports car stuff, you're going to get in your 911 or your Advantage or whatever. This car is, whoever buys this car is probably not going to be driving it a whole lot. Probably going to own it for 2, 3, 5, 10 years, and when they sell it, it's going to have another 4,000 or 5,000 miles on it. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let us know. Does this car's result equal what you would call a crash in the market, or is this just what happens with luxury sedans? Or do you have another take on the result? Let us know. We always love reading your comments. And what was the next car on the list, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, revisiting the 2012 Lamborghini Aventador LP704 Coupe. Our car was on PCAR Market, JP, showing basically 27,000 miles out of Lisle, Illinois. But again, this car was on PCAR Market and had previously been listed earlier this month on Bring a Trailer, where you might remember it was bid to $201,000 and failed to sell at that number. JP and Gerd, especially since you're paying attention to this, our car was at $0.
Oh, wow.
No bids had been made the day before it was going to close while we visited it on Sunday night. I still thought this car would get a flurry of bids at the end, up to $160,000, which would still be 40 grand over underneath where it was listed on BAT, where it failed to sell there, and would wind up in the chum bucket for about 250 grand. JP took the hard stance that this car was DOA and would not get a bid and would hammer at $0. And then Sahan, the Persian Pillow, joined us as third nerd. He thought this car would actually go over the BAT listing. He gave us a bid of $210,000. Gerd, what say you?
It would be hard to imagine that nobody would bid on this car, even if it was
Right.
ultra low. I mean, somebody
Yeah.
would try to get it for something. I would say 145.
145. Gerd, you're in the running. In fact, you probably would have won with that. Now, here's where it gets super interesting. Our car hammered for $126,000 where it failed to sell. Gerd, you would have been the closest, but you don't count because you weren't here. And then it failed to sell on just 7 bids. It received a post-hammer offer of $157,000. That is the current high offer on the car. But the car remains available in the deal tank, what we call the chum bucket, for $245,000. JP, I just want to say I was pretty close. I thought this car would show up for $250. It showed up for $245. It's really interesting, JP, because I don't know how much we learned from this when we talk about how bad is it really. I think this pattern of cars that fail to sell on Bring a Trailer and wind up immediately, and I mean within a week or within a day on PCAR Market, tend, not always, but tend to not do as well on the second run, especially recycling the same assets. And in this instance, Gerd and JP, these assets are terrible. These are some of the worst photos we've seen for a $250,000 car, and we've been doing this for a while now. And that's saying something. But JP, I think this result is more a reflection of this pattern of taking like a second strike or a second swing on PCAR Market, which is much lesser platform when you compare it to BAT and their massive audience. I think this result is reflective of that channel, that pattern, and less reflective of just how bad or how soft the market is for some of these like slightly used, higher mileage, $400,000 and $500,000 exotics that are still worth 50% on the dollar, 10 years down the road. I think those numbers are pretty reflective of what we would expect if we didn't think the economy was bad. This car being offered for $245, maybe he gets it somewhere, but he's got to have better assets. He's got to maybe go to a live auction. He's certainly going to have to wait a while. This car is now burned and he's got a firm grip on it. But I don't know that this result tells us as much about how bad it is as how bad this pattern of recycling cars on PCAR is.
Yep. I mean, this almost tells us nothing. My prediction was 0. I didn't think anyone would even bother. And I hear you, Gerd. Why wouldn't someone bid, right? Because the car was just on Bring a Trailer and it failed to sell at $210. If you're not willing to pay that, then why would you bid anything less than that? Why would anyone bother until it gets to at least close to that? Maybe the person has a come to Jesus moment, right? And so, okay, maybe it gets $180 or something like that. The guy takes a hit. But if you're down, like if this thing got up to 126, what on earth would make you think that the person is going to bother selling it for 126? Why do you think that the reserve would be that much lower? If this were a no reserve auction, it'd be one thing, but clearly it wasn't. And we know that cars on PCAR Market always have unrealistic reserves and expectations. So why would you think this one would be any different of all cars? I mean, a Lambo owner, come on, they're not exactly known for being reasonable. Irrational, thank you. My prediction at 0, the crazy thing about it is that my predicting this car would only get no bids at all, compared to the next closest on the panel, which would be you, Deeb, at $160,000. We weren't that far off from 0 to 160. The difference, you barely won that one. So
right.
it's, I mean, so our bids were $160,000 apart, and 0 was almost the winner. Yeah, what an idiot. This seller is stuck with the car, and a cool car, but it's going to be a while till this car is going to be worth $210,000 again. And I think the only way that happens is if we experience way more inflation. What were you going to hop in there with, Michael?
JP, what about that unicorn rainbow wrap? Would that fix this car?
Yeah, somebody call our friend AJ. Maybe he can do the thing.
The neon rainbow wrap, the unicorn
advertising,
wrap,
bro. Don't you know anything? It's advertising. All right. Does this poor result and failure to sell on what we all pretty much agree is a pretty lousy platform, is that indicative of a market that looks like it's in massive crisis, or is this just a bad listing by a poor seller on a really bad platform? Let us know what your opinion is. We learn a lot when you guys give us comments. Where are you going to hop in there with, Gerd?
I got a question. Okay, so you got a high-end car like this. You're going to put it on Bring a Trailer. How do you not research what most of these people do that have these cars if they don't sell on Bring a Trailer, as far as what platform they go to? Okay, well, you do your research. You see they go on PCAR Market, and they get less on PCAR Market. How do you not look ahead to what might happen to maybe change your mind about lowering the reserve when you have it on Bring a Trailer at the end of the auction?
I think that's a good question. I think the answer to that is, one, they don't do the research. Number two, PCAR Market, I believe the only reason they still exist at all is for the same reason that they exist in the first place. PCAR Market is a platform that is probably the only platform that has been around for as long as, say, Cars and Bids, its next closest competitor. Both of them are way behind when it comes to BAT, and everyone is behind when it comes to BAT, right? But what PCAR did very early on when they released their platform, they knew they didn't have an audience like Doug DeMuro. Doug DeMuro, when he launched Cars and Bids, he was already getting 1 million views on every video that he published on YouTube. So he had a way to put it out there and advertise his new platform. PCAR Market didn't have that. So what they did wisely was advertise. They literally spent money on advertising. They were all over the PCA's website, their classifieds. They were all over Facebook with targeted ads and Instagram. And to answer to your question, Gerd, is I see ads for PCAR Market, and maybe you guys have seen these ads too all over the place, where PCAR Market cherry picks some of their favorable results over years past, back when the market was way better, and they advertise and say, look, failed to sell on Bring a Trailer, bring it to PCAR Market and get more money. They're out there saying that that's what will happen, when we all know if you do 2 seconds of research and watch the market at all, you know that PCAR Market usually 9 times out of 10, at least from what we've been able to see, it gets much worse results. So what do you think of that analysis, Gerd?
So you're saying a lot of these people go into the auctions blind?
I think that advertising helps them decide. They know that BAT is the big one, so they advertise on BAT, they list their car on BAT. It fails to sell. They get a targeted ad on Instagram that knows that they're watching the platforms, and they see this ad for PCAR Market. What the heck is that? Oh, they're getting more money for cars on PCAR Market. I guess I'll go over there. They call, or they send in their listing, and someone calls them. That's a big difference that PCAR Market actually has compared to BAT. When you send your listing in, some guy gets on the phone and calls you, and hey, thanks for trying to sell your car. They're there, yeah. And to their credit, they're actually holding your hand. They're providing some level of service that BAT just doesn't do, and Cars and Bids used to kind of do, but they've laid off half their people, and their customer service is now in the toilet from everything that we're hearing. So I think PCAR Market, the one thing that they have is that ability to actually call and talk to someone. Haggerty, my partner Michael Deeb right there, is a rep for Haggerty, and they will also do the same thing. They'll give you a call and walk you through it, but without the pressure What do you think of all that, Deeb? Am I completely off? That was a long ramble.
Well, no, I think a couple different things can be true, and I think that path that you've laid out is probably true for a number of their listings. I have my own theory, and I think that some people are informed. A guy that has a Lamborghini probably considers himself an enthusiast, is probably in touch with both PCAR and BAT. I don't think PCAR, he stumbles upon them by accident, and I think it's a calculated risk that, okay, I FTS'd on BAT. What do I do now? Well, I can put it on PCAR Market, and even if it doesn't sell, I get all those people that are still following the car over the last 2 weeks to see what it's going to wind up in the chum bucket for. And I can put it up there and people can make me offers. And he finally gets to reveal to the audience that's been looking at his car for 2 weeks on 2 different platforms what it is he's trying to get. In this instance, he's asking $245. My guess is today he'll take a bid. He'll take an offer of $215 or $220 or something like that. But at least we all know what he's thinking now. And I just think I think PCAR is where you go to unveil. And so I think it's a calculated risk by some of the listers, JP. I do think there are some people that go down the path that you're talking about, but I think there's other people that go to PCAR Market knowing it's probably not going to sell at Hammer, but at least I can list it for sale, and everybody who's watching and talking about the car can now see it and tell their friends, oh, a guy wants $245. I bet you'll take $230 or $220 or whatever, and you can make that offer through the platform and get the car sold.
My analysis is probably total BS because really when it comes down to it on this particular car, this is a dealer car. So, yeah. I mean, you just look at the cars in the background. That's why I was putting it up there while you were still talking about it. You know, there's a bunch of other enthusiast cars out there. They know all the platforms, and I think Anthony's probably right, and so are you, Deeb. They just want the opportunity to get it listed, get it in the chum bucket, and have it out there so people know that the car exists. All right, let us know what you guys think, and we are going to be right back with predictions. How bad is the collector and enthusiast car market? We're going to answer that question and make some predictions right after this. Hey guys, I got to tell you about our friends Gerd and Porsche of Las Vegas and Gerd and Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you got to call our friend Steve at Gerd and this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Gerd and Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. All right, we are back. Our Smiths. I'm not wearing... Anthony was saying he was going to send us Rolexes so that we could be on time. But we were on time on this episode, and it's because I'm wearing a plastic Japanese watch. I totally screwed up. I need to wear a better class of watch. Our Smiths, if your fine Swiss watch needs repair, give them a call. Great guys over there at oursmiths.com.
Yeah, Anthony, if you run out of Rolexes for me and JP, we'll take IWCs. We're good with that. Like, whatever you want to do. I mean, it's fine with me. No. Just kidding. All right. Welcome back, everyone. All right. How bad is the enthusiast, collector, and classic car market right now? We are examining that question by looking at specific listings. We just analyzed the listings and the predictions that we made on the last episode. So we've got a bunch of new cars here that we're going to make some predictions on and apply what we think we've learned and see if we can answer the question, or at least maybe look in our little future crystal ball. What's the first car on the list, Michael Deeb? Is this one going to tell us anything? Well, JP, not to cheat too much ahead, but 2 of our listings are on PCAR Market, and I always have a hard time saying we learned something from PCAR Market because PCAR Market's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
We learned something. It just doesn't necessarily. Something good? I don't know.
Yeah,
what's the first car? What's this first car? Everybody's waiting.
All right, JP. On PCAR Market is a 1990 Porsche 964 Carrera 4 Coupe by RWB by, what's his name? Nakasan? Is that it? Am I saying that right? Nakayasan. So, JP, this car is a commission where Nakayasan traveled to North Carolina and did the car in a shop in North Carolina. And there are a bevy of short videos that accompany this listing. And some of them are worth watching because it's kind of cool to watch him walk. I mean, he's a bit of a hack, but he is like immensely talented that he just throws these things together by hand, and there's almost no science left in it at all. This particular car is nicknamed Maverick. It's number 63 of the RWBs that have been built in the USA. JP, I think this car is going to do particularly well because it is very much a twin to Nakai-san's personal car called Stella. Both cars feature this paint, this colorway called Sepang Bronze Metallic. And I got to tell you, JP, although I'm not a massive fan of RWBs, I do get their appeal, and a couple of them are pretty crazy good looking. And I think this car looks pretty tough. I wish they were all turbos and had sort of the bite to match the bark. But as far as just going with bark, I like the way this car looks. Some of the brighter blues and flat colors I don't think make the car look particularly upscale, but this metallic bronze paint really gives the car a rich look to it. And the Maverick nickname is pretty cool. And the videos, I think they did a pretty good job trying to support this listing with before and after shots and this, that, and the other. JP, recently, like this year, we have seen a lot of PCAR Market listings that we have covered just days before they were going to hammer, have almost no bids on them. And our car is already up over $100,000 and already up over 20 bids, which is saying something when considering this car still has a day to go before it closes. So while some RWBs have been really some cheap afterthought cars that have barely scratched the surface of $100,000, I think this car is actually going to do really well. And I'm happy for PCAR Market to have a listing that's garnering this much attention. So JP, I serve it back to you. An RWB, look, we've seen them, and usually they're not that big a deal. There's something about this listing that really gives it a big deal feel to it, and I think it's going to do well here. What do you see when you look at this, and what do you think is going to happen?
These things are, this car looks sick. I have to admit it. I mean, it looks really, really cool, but you said it, they need to be turbos. This car looks like this menacing monster, but as an owner of a 964 C4, this car does not have performance that's anywhere even remotely close to what this car looks like. Your typical, the guy that rents a Toyota Camry when he comes to town and is going to be able to blow your doors off, and I just wonder about the drivability of this car too, because there's all kinds of, you're seeing lots of sidewall wear and on the RWB stencils that they put on the side of the car. I don't know. This thing looks neat, but I feel like if you're going to do this, you got to follow it up with an engine that matches this monster's feel of a car. This car has I'm going to kill you on the racetrack vibes, but when you actually get behind the wheel and drive it, you're like, what happened? I mean, it's got to be a huge letdown. Gerd, what do you think of RWBs?
Yeah, I'm reading through the listing. 247 horsepower to power all four wheels in this car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the size of the tires in the back. I mean, like you guys, I mean, I've watched the RWB videos before, and I kind of cringe watching them hack these cars up, but this one looks sick. I love the way this car looks. The color is beautiful, but man, I don't know. Great car.
We're not ready for numbers if you're just about to throw a number in there. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like this car, look, our friend Rami, we're in the Rami studio. My buddy Rami, he loves wild cars like this, but he buys roofs and he buys, 930s that have this kind of style. If this were a 930 or if this were a 964 turbo, or even if it was a 964 C4 like this one is, and they replaced it with a naturally acid built 3.8, maybe from Patrick Motorsports or something like that, had at least 350 horsepower in it or something like that, you could be like, okay, now we're talking. But again, I own a 964 C4. They're heavy in the first place. Okay, they've got way too much weight in the front because of that front diff. You've got this particular car that's got these crazy fenders and the wing, and like Gerd said, those wheels are going to be heavy. Even if they're lightweight wheels, there's way more wheel and rubber there. This car has got to just be a dog when it comes to actually driving it. What is it going to bring, Michael Deeb, and will it tell us anything about the market being on PCAR Market?
JP, your point is really good. I I bet your C4 cab tips the scales lighter than this car does.
Yeah.
John, our 1999 6.4 C4 Coupe by RWB is currently at $105,964 on 21 bids. Our car closes tomorrow out of Peachtree City, Georgia. And I think this car is on a North Carolina plate and title. But JP, even though it's at 105, it's got 21 bids and it's getting a lot of attention. Like I said, there's a lot of good video and asset to document this car's build and its provenance. And I think that, along with the gorgeous colorway and these, let's face it, really sexy photos, I think this car is going to do well, JP. I predict $151,000 where it will sell on the natural hammer at PCAR Market tomorrow. JP, what say you?
As much as I don't think it's worth it, I think you're right. I'm actually going to bid higher than you. I'm going to say 161 and say it could go even higher. This is the kind of car that, like, look, if you could get this for $120 or $130, then it'd be worth it to spend another $50,000 or $60,000 on the powertrain to make this thing, perform as well as it looks. And then at that point, I think you got a couple $100,000 car. Look, you are winning the car show scene if you own this car.
Oh yeah.
This is a show. This is a showstopper. You can have a $500,000 or $1 million Lambo at your show. You roll up in this thing for under $200,000.
Game over.
All the kids are coming to look at your car, even though it's the performance is straight up pathetic. Gerd, what do you think?
I think this car looks sick. I'm going to say 169.
Oh, you're going right over me, man. I'm screwed. Come on, Gerd. Why you got to do me like that? Jeez. All right. Good bid, Gerd. Good bid. I mean, that's the show. All right. So what do you guys think?
Ladies and gentlemen, tape the show because Gerd will never be a guest on this again.
You're out, buddy. Get out of here. We can do the rest of the show without you.
Yeah.
If you're not watching this, live, Anthony's triggered. If you're coming in on this show and it's not live or whatever, and you're wondering, hey, let us know what your bid is, because at the time of this show's taping, we don't know what this car will in fact sell for. So put it in the comments right now, timestamp it, and see if you're better at this than we are. At those numbers, let's say it brings Gerd's number, Deeb. Does that say, is that low? Does that represent a softening of the market, or is that what would this car have brought 2 years ago? Same, more, less?
I don't know, man. It's so hard to tell, JP. There is such a weird smattering of examples of RWBs. Remember, we saw that 993 cab that was could barely scratch $80,000, and we didn't want it for that number. You know what I mean? And we love Porsches.
Yeah.
So it's just really hard to say. This one seems to have all the right classic RWB bits with the high wing, those deep dish wheels, and then in this case a really upscale high touch colorway. So yeah, this car a couple years ago, JP, could easily have broken $200,000, maybe pushing 250. I don't know what it costs to have Nakai-san come and chop up your 964. That number is still a mystery to me. Right, JP, that's the one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know. We'll see.
You look at this car, the one you're talking about. I remember this car, and it was also on PCAR Market, if I remember correctly. The convertibles just don't look that good when they're this cartoonishly wide. And if I recall, this one was a Tiptronic, so that really kills it.
Worse.
Totally. With a 5-speed on the car that we're talking about, that is a car that still has potential. It looks amazing. So now just put an engine in it. You already have a good transmission. Let's go. Whereas if it has a Tiptronic, man, that is just such a pain in the ass. The car is just never going to be any good, or at least it'll never be cost effective to make it any good.
That 993 also had a basically stock interior, whereas this other car had a roll bar and Recaro seats and stuff. They went and did the whole thing. So JP, I think it could have been a big money car a couple of years ago. It's a little late to market, but we'll see how well they do. It's off to a good start. All
right, let us know what you guys think in the comments below, and let's move on to another car. Let's see if this helps us answer the question: how bad is it really in the classic and enthusiast car market? What do we got?
JP, we're never going to learn anything from PCAR Market.
Yeah, we're staying here. Oh my God!
As we have another deja vu listing. You may remember, JP, and the herd will definitely remember this 1973 Porsche 911 Speedster conversion with a 3.6. You remember, JP, this car ran Where's the date? PCAR Market. Come on.
It was in May. I don't know the exact date, but it was definitely in May.
In May of this year, this car ran on PCAR Market out of Lincoln, California, showing 1,300 mileage, true mileage unknown. JP, the assets are exactly the same. The platform's exactly the same. Our car failed to sell at $89,000 on 14 bids. This same car has come back to market and closes essentially 2 days from now with the same photos. What are we doing? Why would PCAR Market agree to list this car without any either mechanical updates or upgrades or new documentation or new assets? This just goes to show you how PCAR Market is run by a bunch of boiler room closers who just are looking at these listings as free inventory to sell. As far as PCAR Market is concerned, these are just free consignments that they get to list again. With no concern for the art of marketing these really special cars in such a manner that you make them, you bring them to market in such a way that somebody looks at the photos and says, I want that car more than I want the money that's in my pocket or my bank account. And in this instance, JP, just based on this car coming back to market, deja vu, exactly the same. This is a complete failure in marketing, and it's a complete failure by the platform. I do not think this car will do as well as it did last time. I'll be happy to eat crow. PCAR Market shocks and kicks us in the shin all the time, but I do not think that's going to happen here. Listings like this, JP, they piss off my sensibilities. This is pure. What was that? Anyway, I can't remember the name of that movie, but it was really stupid. This is a classic example of PCAR Market kind of effing things up. And I'm shocked that the seller isn't doing a better job. Like, you're just bringing this car back to market. You haven't done anything to spruce it up. So, what are we doing here?
This car was on PCAR Market already, like you said, back in May. And we all know what happens with a car that fails to sell in PCAR Market. It goes in the chum bucket and the deal tank. How much was he asking for it in the deal tank?
$200,000, remember?
Yeah, so it's okay, it only got to less than 100, and then he wanted twice as much, and it didn't sell in the chum bucket. We're back 3 or 4 months later with the same. It's who said it in the comments? Somebody. It's Groundhog's Day, man. What is going on? I mean, I expect Bill Murray to hop out in the background on these pictures.
One last point, JP. If you're going to bring it back to market on the same platform with the same assets and no updates, you should at least run it the second time around, no reserve. And
which this car does still have a reserve.
Exactly.
Right.
So, JP, it's yours, and I don't know what to do with this. This is just stupid.
I mean, we have our little, PCAR Market sucks, right? It's because they just, how did this what was the conversation? Ring, ring, ring. Yeah, hi, PCAR Market. I remember that car I tried to sell on your platform 3 months ago? Yeah, we remember that car. Well, yeah, I want to try to sell it again. Can I do that again? Yeah, why not? It's going to be great. This time, it'll make all the money this time. I mean, what?
JP, you got that conversation backwards. PCAR Market is so desperate for listings. They're trolling their own failures to sell. And they say, hey, you want to run that car again? And they're like, sure, for free. And they're like, of course, for free. And then they ran it a second time. I mean, JP, this is
Does anyone, what is going through your brain to think that if you didn't get it, it's one thing to try a different platform. Okay, we're reaching out to a different audience.
Yeah.
If I recall, wasn't this car on BAT before it failed to sell on PCAR Market the last time we covered it in May? This is just total Groundhog's Day. Gerd, what do you think is going on?
Put it to sleep. I mean, come on. It's got to end somewhere.
Shoot it in the head gasket.
I don't know. I remember last time you were asking me about it before the show. I remember this car now. It's got the one with the funky roof line when you put the top up.
Yeah, look at it. They didn't. Weird. Yeah, they didn't make a Speedster this year. I mean, look, I actually like the car. I said that on the last time we covered this car. I think the car is really neat. It's got 3.6. It's got to be super lightweight. They never made a Speedster in the long hood 911 era. They still at this point you still had the 356 Speedsters. It wasn't until the last year of the G-Body 911 in 1989 that they brought out the Speedster again in the 911, and that was a great car. It looks to me like this windshield is that windshield, but the clamshell is definitely a custom clamshell. The top is obviously a custom top, doors, all that kind of stuff. They never made this car, and so making a backdated Speedster kind of thing, it's just a weird thing. But all that said, I love it. I actually would love to own this car. And I remember when it came up, I was like, wow, if this car is reasonably priced, I was thinking it was going to be like $80,000 or something like that. This would be a lot of fun, and it would definitely be something different at the car show and out on the street. All that said, Deeb, what's it going to bring, if any? What's going to happen this time?
Audience, $80,000 is a good bid because it went to $89,000. And I just have to say, Yuri and Sahan and John, our buddy John and Chris, when this car went live again, everybody was like, uh-oh, here we go again. They were just cracking up. Everybody was like, I can't believe this car is back. So JP, our car is sitting at $28,500 on just 3 bids, and our car closes 2 days from now. Again, it ran earlier this year where it failed to sell on $89,000 on 14 bids and wound up in the chum bucket for just under $200,000. Epic construction, a massive motor in a lightweight car. This thing is probably a driving sensation, but I don't see how they're going to do better when they're their own worst comp on the same platform. So JP, it's a 1973 donor car. I just pulled the 73 from my bid. I think this car will bid up to $73,000, where I believe it will fail to sell a second time and wind up in the chum bucket for like a fraction less than what it was last time. So if it was like 195, it'll wind up in the chum bucket for like 189. And I don't think this car is going anywhere. Anyway, JP, where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, unless the seller had some just crazy epiphany or come to Jesus moment and realized that, okay, I was nuts. $200,000 is it's not happening, because there had to have been some offers in there too. Cause that's what happened. When the car winds up in the chum bucket / deal tank, that the grubby PCAR Market sales guys are calling everyone who bid on this car to see if they can get them to pay a little bit more or even a lot more. So how close did they get from $80-something thousand to $180,000? Were there offers in there that were above 6 figures? And has this guy just given up and said, okay, it's not happening, my dream is over? I think this car is going to get to $80,000, fail to sell, and I think it's going to wind up right back in the chum bucket. But I think it's going to be a significantly lower number. I think it'll probably be in the chum bucket for like $140 this time or something like that. Gerd, what
call Rami. Call Rami.
Excuse me, sorry, I had to change my bid on my notes here. I had 73K.
Gerd.
I had it on there before you even said yours. I'm like, darn it, he took it. I'm gonna go 76,000. I think you got a desperate seller here, but man, he's not asking a desperate price. I mean, he's still up there in the over. Like you said, JP, he's probably still going to be at 140, 150,000 in the chum bucket.
Yep.
But I mean, at what point is he going to get realistic if he really wants to sell the car and see what it's really worth?
Yeah. I don't think this is going to tell us a whole lot about the market. In fact, I think it's going to just be confusing for the market, because this is just an abnormality when it comes to everything. Platform, car. The car is a weird car. The car's on a weird platform. It's on there twice. So let us know what you think the results of this auction listing will be. Will it get as much as it brought last time, more, or even less? And what do you think the seller is going to do with this car at that point? And let's move on. We got one more car to see if we can answer the question, how bad is the classic and collector car market really? Is it really that bad? I still don't think so. What's the next car on the list? See if we can figure it out.
All right, JP, we were talking about that M6 convertible last time, and when you had picked the car, you had thought it was a V10, and so I thought it'd be fun to check in on a 2008 BMW M5 that is the generation E60 with the V10. Our car, JP, looks black. When I selected it, I thought it was black, but it's actually Monaco blue metallic, which is super, super dark. Black interior, JP, our car has 68,000 miles and a 6-speed manual transmission listed on Cars and Bids out of Hesperia, California. This looks like a no-nonsense, fair mileage, very rare manual V10 M5. JP, I just thought this was sort of like the market you were looking at when we looked at that M6 convertible. But this is the previous generation car with the naturally aspirated V10. I had one of these. I had a 2010 with the SMG. And I had very much a love-hate relationship with that car. There was things about that car that I absolutely adored, and there were things about that car that were just like, oh my God. The transmission obviously was one of them. The run-flat tires were a pain in the ass. But it's an unbelievable driving machine, and the sound that it makes is glorious. And today, JP, these can be talk about a baller on a budget. For the same kind of money that you could have an Aston Martin Rapide, I'd much rather drive this car around and slap an exhaust system on it. And every time you go through a tunnel, you sound like you're in a 90s Formula One car. JP, these cars are probably even softer than you can imagine. This car has fair miles and looks to be in fine driver's condition. This is really a value grab, in my opinion. So, JP, what do you think of the car? What do you think of the manual? What do you think of the value?
Yeah, it's good to kind of compare this to the Rapide that we talked about earlier in the show because, like, you know, this car is borderline just regular used car territory. But the fact that it has 3 pedals makes this something actually special and worth talking about. This is a true enthusiast car. The BMW E39 M5s, the previous generation, were way more popular, are still more popular. They're a lighter, better looking car. This car is just kind of it's got the bangle design, everybody, the much maligned designer from BMW of the era, who everyone's, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, there's got to be a meme of somewhere around of Bangle sitting there going, you guys miss me now? You know, with how bad BMWs look. Because everyone would love to have Bangle come back at this point.
Yeah, Chris Bangle, they should superimpose him like having tea with Bush going, miss us now?
Right, exactly. We've all seen that meme. Right, so, but this car, I mean, as ugly as it is, it's still pretty good looking. It is a big, you know, luxury saloon, a big old sedan, but 3 pedals and a V10 engine. This thing has got to be a hoot to drive. I've never driven one. I'd sure like to. But I don't think I'd pay a whole heck of a lot for one. Gerd, what do you think of these?
Yeah, it looks like a nice car. Isn't this the same gen that they had the M3? I think I may take an M3 that they put the V8 in, didn't they? With the bulge in the hood?
Let's see, what year is this one
08?
exactly? This is an 08. Yeah, 08. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
I
that'd
think
be, was it E?
It seemed like I like the look of the M3 better than the M5. This looks like a standard sedan. I mean, but yeah, could you imagine even just like an M3 with the V8 and the manual and one of those things?
The E92, E94, or E90, E92 BMW M3s were really, really good looking cars, and a much lighter car with that V8, probably just a lot more of a spirited car. I'm with you, Gerd, but
I think one of those would be more sought after than maybe one of these with the V10 and just look kind of like a standard looking sedan.
Yeah,
you know.
Can Doug DeMuro get it done? What's this car going to bring, Michael?
All right, JP. So basically, when you look at the market for these E60 M5s with the manual, the average seller price for these cars is a little over 40 grand. Let's call it $43,000 to $45,000. I just think the market is soft. I think this car's got a couple of miles on it. The dark blue, I don't know that it's going to have a broad appeal. And as rare as the M5 V10 manuals are, they don't bring a like surprisingly massive premium like we see in other cars from that same era. If this is a Ferrari F430 with a manual, it'd be worth twice as much money as the single clutch automatic. But that's not the case with these V10s. And so I think this car is not going to bring even its industry selling average. And I think this car is going to be a decent value at $37,000, where I think it will sell. I should say, JP, our car is sitting at $24,000 on 8 bids, and it closes a day from now. So 24 grand on 8 bids. I think it'll make it to 37 and sell on Cars and Bids. John, what's your bid?
I think it's a neat car. I think it's a great enthusiast car for not a lot of money. I love what Max says here. I see an expensive drift car. This would be one hell of a car to slide around a corner. I love that idea, but I think most of the drift guys want stuff that's less expensive. Not just less expensive to buy up front, but, you know, to get parts for messing up a V10
clutches
BMW and clutches on that is not going to be fun to make that payment. Look, this is Cars and Bids. Cars and Bids is not very strong. If this thing were on BAT, I'd be with you, Deeb, but I don't think the handful of people that are looking at this listing, I don't think there's enough people, I don't think there's enough eyeballs on Cars and Bids to get this car over the line. I think this thing's going to get to $27,000. Did you say this is a reserve or no reserve auction?
It's a reserve. It
is a reserve, yeah. So the big question at 27, will it even sell? I'm going to say, yeah. I think Cars and Bids is probably, it looks like Cars and Bids has been pretty aggressive with their reserves lately. They don't want cars not to sell. So if somebody's trying to sell this car, I would also guess that that's probably why it's on Cars and Bids, because I would bet that BAT wouldn't give them a reserve any higher than 27. Gerd, what do you think?
How many bids were there?
8 at 24,000.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Steve. I don't need to change my bid on this one. I'm going to go 35.
35. Well, you're right
all
underneath
right.
me. So JP splits the difference, but he's closer to me. I see some of the bids in the herd. Almost all of them are in the 30s, JP, except Anthony Vieira is at 28.5, so he's down there by you. But everybody else is in the 30s. So we'll see which of us is correct. JP, that is a wrap.
Well, hold on. I mean, I just wanted to mention real quickly too, though. Like Gerd said, I mean, a BMW E90 or E92 isn't getting anywhere. I mean, at this point, with 68,000 miles, you're talking about a $25,000 car. I think these are way less popular than the E90, E92 M3s, don't you?
Well, yeah. So JP, just as a total tease ahead to our next show, we are going to look at an E9X M3 Coupe that is also on Cars and Bids. That car closes just after our next show. But right now, with 3 days to go, that car's sitting at $45,000 on 17 bids.
Okay.
With just it's a little bit lower miles, but it's a manual transmission. It's the same platform, coupe, with the carbon roof, just like we're talking. It's exactly the example that Gerd presented to us. So Gerd, ever the foreshadower, is already teased ahead our next car. Thanks, Gerd. Is there anything else you want to ruin for us? Is my wife leaving me and I don't know about
That's
it?
Yeah, I mean, that's I guess at your guys' number, I think that says that the market's still pretty strong on something like this. And so it'll be interesting to see what the actual results will be. We will find out this Sunday at 6:30, and you guys can join us live for that episode. Want to shout out to everyone in the Nerd Herd. You guys are so awesome. Give us a like, a thumbs up, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done that already. Do we have anybody new in the Nerd Herd tonight? I haven't been paying close attention. Sorry, guys.
Really early. Who was it? So Dr. Daka. We've said hi to Dr. Daka. Great handle. And then who else was somebody I didn't quite recognize?
Well, if there's anybody new in there, guys, make sure you
Chris Brunelli.
Make sure you say hello to him and everybody introduce yourself. It's great to have more people in the Nerd Herd hanging out with us.
Yeah.
We will be back in a couple of days to look at more results and see if we can continue to answer this question. I don't think the problem is here, and if you've stuck around this long, thank you. If you're new to the show, did we answer the question? I think the answer is there's not enough information yet. This is a fluid market. What do you think, Gerd?
I think, obviously prices have come down, and it's kind of interesting to see how some of these higher end cars end up, because especially the ones that usually soften up quite a bit in the market. But I mean, as far as the car business goes, I mean, we see that obviously used car prices are back to normal. They've been that way for a little while. As far as people trading things in, they're back to the negative equity thing if they trade in too soon. So, I mean, having our finger on the market as far as that goes every day, it's different than the high end in the collector car market, but it kind of gives you an idea what's going on, all the way around.
Yeah. All right. If you are looking to sell a car and you don't want to mess with BAT or PCAR Market or even Doug DeMiro, why don't you give my friend Michael Deeb a call? He's over there.
Yeah.
Wait, he's over there. Something like that.
Yeah. You
Tell
can
him
reach
about
out
that,
to
Deeb.
me reach out to me on my Instagram, which is the McDeeb, or you can reach out to us through the Bid Nerds platform on social media. Say hello and introduce yourself, and we can talk about whatever car you want to sell. I want to thank Gerd for coming on the show and hosting with us tonight. Thank you, Gerd, for being a last-minute addition. And to Chris Carbine down in New Orleans. Chris, the show is almost over. Bring on the beignets. All right, let's go.
Let's get it done. All right, guys, we will see you Sunday night. Thanks for hanging out.
See you guys.
Get those nerds!